Perspective on Florida Gateway College Television is sponsored by Potash Corp of White Springs. Potash Corp, helping nature provide.
Hello everyone, welcome to Perspective. This is a public affairs presentation of Florida Gateway College brought to you by Potash Corporation of White Springs. My guests on the program today are Richard Daigle, who is the public affairs specialist with the Small Business Administration, and Ted Stuckey, who is with FEMA. He is also in a capacity of public information officer. We're going to talk about applying for assistance through FEMA and the Small Business Administration. We'll do that when we come back. Don't go away.
What kind of service plan does this come with?
Unlimited.
Can I keep my same phone number?
Absolutely.
How do I change the ringtone?
Just hook it up to your computer.
Does it have a camera? What's the warranty? Does it come in silver? Can I put my party shuffle on this? Does it have a 3.5 millimeter headset jack? You sell a lot of these?
It's the one I carry.
You ever get those phantom vibrations in your pocket?
Any questions?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Ask questions. For the 10 questions everyone should know, go to ahrq.gov.
Welcome back to Perspective on Florida Gateway College Television. My guests represent assistance in the way of flood help. We have Richard Daigle, who is a public information officer with the Small Business Administration, and Ted Stuckey, who is a public information officer with FEMA. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for having us.
We are, obviously, and we want to show a little bit of video. Tropical Storm Debby, I think everybody can agree, was probably a 500-year event. We got so much rain all at one time. Guys, how many houses were affected, or how many do you know that you guys have actually been in contact with?
Well, I tell you, we've had almost 14,000 people contact FEMA for assistance. That represents people that were affected, and that's a big number. And we really encourage folks, if they were affected, to go ahead and make that call and contact FEMA.
Well, let's take a look at some video that we had from the floods. I mean, it was, I think everybody knows who lived through it on like Friday and Saturday. It never stopped raining. The water kept coming and the water got in places where water never got before. Mm-hmm. And so I think we've got some aerial shots that we want to show the affected areas here in North Florida, and maybe we can describe what kind of help that FEMA and Small Business Administration will do for people who got water in their houses. Yeah. But first, here we go. Now, does FEMA do? I mean, obviously, this is a roadway that. I mean, does FEMA provide assistance for public entities as well?
For roadways, of course. There's several programs that FEMA offers. The one dealing with roadways that would really talk to this video you got showing is our public assistance program. That deals with public entities, governments. It will repair bridges, roads, public buildings, that kind of thing. Then, more importantly, we have our individual assistance program, which deals with individual homeowners. That's where we really like to see that assistance come in.
I mean, you're looking at this video right now, and you can see guardrails, and you can see cars that got stopped. I mean, I guess people didn't know going into this water that it was going to affect their car. But I mean, just looking at this video, you think, wow, this was. I don't think a lot of people realized how big of an event this really was.
That's right. The water, as I understand, I wasn't here, rose really quickly, and that's a really dangerous situation. So stopping on the road, don't drive through that water, is the right thing those folks should have done.
My guests on the program are Richard Daigle from the Small Business Administration and Ted Stuckey from FEMA. There's a deadline of September 4th of getting your paperwork in, and we're looking at some flood right now. Ted, talk about that deadline. It's a deadline that folks must actually register.
That's right. The deadline to register for assistance with FEMA is September 4th, and that's 60 days after that initial declaration was made. What that does, it's think of it as a gateway. Anytime there's a disaster, the recovery is actually a team recovery effort. So it's not just FEMA, it's not just SBA, it's not just the state, it's FEMA, SBA, the state, charitable organizations such as the Salvation Army, Red Cross, churches, it's all the way down to the individual, so it's a huge team effort. That registration really opens the gateway to not only FEMA assistance, but SBA, state, and other charitable organizations too.
Let's talk about the difference between SBA and FEMA. FEMA, you guys come in, and for those who did not have any flood insurance, there are grants available which do not have to be paid back.
That's correct.
Talk about that program.
Yeah, the FEMA's focus is to provide a safe sanitary environment for individuals to live in while they're making their recovery. There are limits by law of what we can provide. The difference would be, of course, insurance would be the first primary means of recovery. FEMA would come in if there's still some unmet needs, and there may be still things left, and that's where the SBA comes in, where they can really come in and provide more assistance.
You know, and Richard, people say, I don't have a business.
Right.
And so there's a misconception that SBA is only for business.
And you know, Mike, that is such a key message because our name is Small Business Administration. And what may happen at this stage of where we are now with this declaration is that there may be people out there who've received a packet, they've registered with FEMA, and they receive a packet of information from FEMA, and that includes an SBA disaster loan application. And so a homeowner or renter may look at that disaster loan application, see our name, which is Small Business Administration, and then say, I'm not a business, it doesn't relate to me. And that could be a very, the wrong thing to do, because you could really lose out on some valuable assistance. We help homeowners and renters in addition to businesses. And so we always try to get that message across that SBA is not just for businesses. And that deadline is so important. As we look at this video and see the houses that were affected and just the scope of the disaster that happened here, you realize that there are people, even at this juncture, as of the taping of this show today, that are still dealing with things, and they're still dealing with getting out of the muck and mire and all of the flood. And so we want to make sure that they understand that they have to do those things, but this deadline is so important they can't ignore the deadline because it can be, as Ted said, kind of the gateway to some very valuable federal assistance.
We talked before we came on the air. FEMA gets you going. I guess the maximum grant is $31,000.
$31,400 is the maximum amount FEMA can provide by law.
And that's not going to do it for
a lot of folks, that's not going to do it.
When you go out there and you look at some of the damage that's been done, and you've seen, this is what you do for a living, so you've seen the worst of the worst. These people are in some really dire straits because it's not going to fix the mold that could come in. I mean, a lot of things have to be taken into consideration.
Exactly. FEMA wants to look at and again provide a safe sanitary environment. That can be through some home repairs, and it can also be through rental assistance that provide you assistance to have another place to live while you're repairing your primary home.
And then on the Small Business Administration end, it's not a handout. It's actually a loan. And you said that I think you mentioned some interest rates are under 2%?
That's right. For homeowners and renters, the interest rate could be as low as under 2%. And so this is a loan that you can only get in a time of disaster. There's no closing costs. There's deferred payments for a period of time. So it's a loan directly through the federal government. It's not through a bank. And so basically, you may have insurance that could help, but you may be uninsured or underinsured.
Well, let me ask you both. And people I've talked to, you say, like, I'll say her name, Danielle Decker, who is the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. Her house is underwater. I said, Danielle, did you have insurance? And she said, no, we couldn't get flood insurance. And so that seems to be out there, that a lot of people did not have flood insurance. And so FEMA and SBA are the only things they have to I mean,
Exactly.
I'm sure you're talking about a bunch of emotional people out there that have lost,
Sure.
pictures and animals and things like that. This is the only help that they get.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because a lot of people, think it's a charity, and it's not. It's tax money that you've paid into. So take advantage of it if it's there. One thing I do want to pick up on that you said, that she said that you couldn't get flood insurance. There's a misinformation out there that if the bank doesn't require you, or if you're not in that special flood hazard area, that you can't get it. Well, you can. Anyone can buy flood insurance through their normal insurance agent. The difference being, if you're in that special flood hazard area, the premiums are different. If you're outside of that area, the premiums are lower. I really encourage folks, if they're close to that line, to really strongly consider it, because floods don't follow maps. Engineers draw these maps using the best information available, but floods don't necessarily follow those maps.
Well, and I don't know whether you've heard from people, but we had an incident in 2004 where we had hurricane after hurricane after hurricane,
Yeah.
and certain areas flooded in this area. And it seems like, fast forward to 2012,
Sure.
and they're totally different areas that were flooded.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so people weren't expecting this. And so I wanted to ask you a question about, you've got a deadline of the 4th, but I have heard from people that can't even get into their houses still. Does this deadline apply to them too? And Ted, if you'll explain that.
That's an outstanding question, and it's very real right now in this county. What we need folks to do is go ahead and call and start that process. Call FEMA, 861 FEMA, and get that registration process started. If their home is still inaccessible, they're still eligible for things such as rental assistance.
And you said the rental assistance is up to 18 months?
That's right, up to 18 months rental assistance, and that's looked on at a month-to-month basis. So we need folks that if their home is inaccessible, keep in contact with FEMA. Go ahead and really stay close with FEMA so that we know, as things change, when we can get in view of the property.
When is the best time? Should it be simultaneously, that Small Business Administration, or should you exhaust the funds that FEMA is providing before you apply?
That's a good question. I mean, we want to make sure people understand when they register with FEMA that is only registration with FEMA. It does not include Small Business Administration. It's a separate process. And so again, getting back to those people that get that packet of information in the mail from FEMA, for many people, there's a screening process, so it won't include everyone, but for many people, they'll receive the SBA disaster loan application. And what happens, Mike, is that, and this is just the way people would think, of course, is that, hey, if I'm going to get grant money and I don't have to pay it back, I want all of that I can get. But once the word loan comes up, it's not a popular word. And because people are afraid of a loan, especially in today's economic times.
Well, but if you don't get a loan and your house is still unlivable,
what are you going to do?
I mean, I'm not sure banks are taking the risk of.
And why would you go to a bank when you could get such a
Right. But I don't think I don't think banks are making loans. Maybe they are making loans, but they're certainly not going to be at 2%.
Here's what we want people to do, Mike, is because when we get people that hear that word loan, and I'm afraid of the word loan, I don't want to take on additional debt. What we're saying to them, whether you're a homeowner, a renter, or a business owner, is we're saying apply for the loan. Once you apply for the loan, then we could sort out, you could determine whether or not you want to use the loan. You could use half of it, all of it, or none of it. It gives you an option. Actually, what happens is if a person applies for the loan, they're approved, then they have access to money to build back. For homeowners, it could be up to $200,000 to build back their physical property. On top of that, another $40,000 for their personal contents, and even more if they go into mitigation, where they want to do things to provide, to protect themselves against the next flood. For renters, they could borrow up to $40,000. But that's all for people that we approve. If we're unable to approve a person for a loan, they're actually automatically referred back to FEMA, where there could be additional grant assistance. And so in either way, there's something good that could happen, but it all hinges on, have you applied for the SBA?
And your deadline is the same deadline as FEMA's.
September 4th.
Yep.
And it's so critical, Mike, because what we don't want to have is people contact us after the deadline and say, I'm just now finding out about this, and I need this help. I need this low interest disaster loan money. And then at that point, by law, we are unable to help them. And so this is why programs like this are so important, to get this message out to, if people are listening and they themselves are affected, or they know people are affected. This September 4th deadline is a really big deal, and it's a crucial part to receive all the federal assistance you can get.
Richard, I talk to people, I do this show all the time, and I talk to people, a lot of them don't know how to,
Sure.
maybe they don't know how to take a loan out for a house.
Right.
Sure. And so we've had shows where we've had lenders from banks come in. This doesn't happen all the time. You're an expert. Are there people available to talk to maybe an elderly person who got some flood damage that really is afraid but needs a friend like Richard Daigle to say, hey, tell me my options.
Sure.
Can you help me to do what's best for my situation?
And a key thing, again, is for them to understand that we're only asking that they apply for the loan. If they're approved, then they'll have some options where they can decide what to do, whether or not to use the money. But there's actually 3 different ways they could reach us. They could go to the Disaster Recovery Center, and it's currently open.
Do we know how long that recovery center is going to be open?
FEMA will speak to that when Ted, I don't know if you.
Do you know?
Yeah, we don't have a date. We do monitor.
Will it be right up to the deadline, maybe?
It's hard to say. We monitor the activity on a daily basis and base decisions on that. So we work closely with the state to determine when we close each facility.
So the sooner you can get to talk to you or some of your staff,
always.
I mean that's going to to be probably. I mean, don't wait till.
Well, there's actually 3 different ways to access SBA. The Disaster Recovery Center is one, and at the Disaster Recovery Center while it is open, and it'll be a press release, and they'll announce the closing.
Right. And folks can, the guys are going to send us press releases, so you can look on Channel 8 to find out when that is going to happen. So we will make sure you know when that's going to be closed down.
But they can access SBA face-to-face at the Disaster Recovery Center. They can actually apply online at www.sba.gov.
Yeah, I think we've got those graphics up for both FEMA and SBA. I think they're sba.gov.
And they could call our 800 number.
800-659-2955. FEMA is 1-800-621-FEMA or 3362, or you can go on to disasterassistance.gov and all that information. I think older folks that may not be technologically savvy, like the interaction with people, and a friendly face like yourself or Ted would be great. You guys travel. You live in Birmingham.
Correct.
You live in Atlanta.
That's right.
You cover the Southeast, where it seems like most disasters are happening.
Lately, yeah.
What can you say about this one? You've seen some video. You've seen the people that have been affected. How do you describe this? And I know you were in Birmingham when the big tornadoes hit and so many people lost their lives.
Of course, the video is very devastating when you look at it. But even if it's just that one house, if it's your house, that's a major disaster. So I really, it's really an individual thing when you look at how bad is this. So don't want to minimize that one person that got total destruction in his house.
Now FEMA, again, it will be determined how long you stay depending on what services, but it looks like you guys will probably be doing a mop-up thing by September 4th. And then again, if they want more information, they can go onto the website too. Is there anything that people need to be considering when, obviously you're probably not going to be able to get your house the way it was. You maybe,
Well, we want them to take advantage of all the assistance that's out there. Like Ted said earlier, this is not a handout at all. This is no one's fault that this flood came. It was just an act of nature, that came and wreaked the damage that it did. So the government is here to help, but there are things that people have to do to get that help. And there's actually 2 things they need to do to put themselves in a position to get the maximum amount of federal assistance. First is register with FEMA. And at this stage, a lot of people may have done that. If they haven't, they certainly need to do that. But after they've registered with FEMA, they need to make sure that they've taken that second step with
Right.
the SBA. When they do that, they're in a position where they can get the most amount of federal aid.
Let me ask you, Ted, how difficult is it? What do you need to bring? What do you, I mean, do you need a birth certificate? What kind of paperwork?
There are some paperwork items that you need to bring or to have available when you call and register, such as your Social Security number, property address, of course, a description of the damage. And
What if you don't have that? I mean, and again, I see
well, we
people.
can work with what you have.
Okay, sure.
The big thing is let's start with what you've got, and then we'll work from there. The key thing is getting into that system and making that registration call. One of the big things that we find is we need good phone numbers that we can actually get in touch with you.
Well, obviously,
a lot of
if
times,
your house is underwater, that phone isn't going to be working.
Exactly. It's a lot of times, by habit, we give out our home number. Well, what if we're not living there at the time? So we need a good cell phone number, a hotel number, a friend's number, somebody's number that we can actually get in contact with you to proceed with the process.
And how long does that process take? I mean, are we doing rapid?
It can be very quickly, and it's individually based, so each individual case is different, but it can happen as quickly as a few days.
Okay.
Normally, right now, we're looking at about 1 to 2 days after you make that first registration call. You should get a call from one of our inspectors to make an appointment and come out and view your damage. And from there, it's just a matter of days once a determination is made.
Now, you guys said 13,800 claims have been registered with FEMA.
Almost 14,000 folks have called FEMA for assistance.
Now, that is not just Columbia,
that's statewide.
Suwannee, but
That's statewide.
and this is from the Debby incident.
Correct.
Richard, you said that you've so far loaned $10 million.
Right around 10 million statewide, and in Columbia County here, it's over 2.5 million as of this date.
Now, were those mostly businesses, or were they mostly houses?
It's mostly homeowners and renters. So that shows you that's where the damage is. And again, it's so important as people consider that, to understand that the people that we've approved these loans these are people that received that loan application, they completed it, and they returned it to us. And then they went through the process.
And so they are now able to hire a restoration specialist or another company
we'll get the money
that does that.
When we get a completed loan application from someone, we make a loan decision within about 10 days. Then after that, we do the closing as soon as possible. And once we've got a loan closing, within 2 or 3 days, we electronically deposit in people's account money so they can get started building it.
They can write the checks to get the process going.
Exactly.
I mean, I know there's a lot of older folks out there that do not want to leave their houses. They didn't want to leave their houses when the water was coming up, but they want to get back in their houses. There's a familiarity of being in your own home.
Absolutely. We want to make sure that they understand they do not have to wait if they are working with their insurance company, we strongly encourage them to apply with us first. They don't have to wait for their insurance settlement. In some cases, Mike, we could, when there's severe damage, it depends on a case-by-case basis, but we may be able to refinance part of the existing mortgages, and we can also help people with relocation. So there's a lot of flexibility within the SBA disaster loan. But I sound like a broken record here, but it all gets back to that application. We just don't want to leave anyone behind because they didn't know, and so this is a time for people to take action and get that application.
And I hear the empathy in your voice, and it's really refreshing to hear someone from the federal government that really cares about people. But I mean, it's really great that there are people that are caring and want to do what's best. Let me ask you maybe a crazy question. Does this loan process or the assistance from FEMA, I would hate to fix my house up and then have another event take place where, I mean, is there something that in your rules that can help you maybe build a berm around your house?
Absolutely.
So that I mean, because you would hate to do all this work, go through all this loan process, and then have an incident happen where you get water back in your house again.
Well, one thing that happens is when you're in a flood situation like this and you're approved for a disaster loan, we require you to take flood insurance. So we want you to protect your property against future events. However, as you just said, if you could build a berm or elevate your house or do something to protect against another flood, then what we'll do is increase the amount of our loan to help you with that. It's called mitigation. And so again, that person, once they get approved, they could talk to a loan officer about that. But we will actually increase the amount of the loan to help that person take steps to protect their property.
Last question to you. Are public entities, I know that you mentioned something about the roadways and some assistance there. Counties also getting some funding from FEMA to help pump the water out, get it going?
Yes, the public assistance program is well underway. We've started our applicants briefing, which is hosted by the state, and then we'll proceed with our kickoff meetings, which is with FEMA, where we actually get into the projects themselves. So they have folks working directly with them to help them through that process.
Richard Daigle is with the Small Business Administration. Ted Stuckey is with FEMA. If you'd like more information on how to apply for assistance, you can go on to the website or you can call FEMA. The number for FEMA is 1-800-621-FEMA, or that number is 3362. Or you can go on to the disasterassistance.gov. If you need to register with the SBA, 1-800-659-2955, or log on to SBA.gov. And right now you're at Commerce, I'm reading your notes, 484 Southwest Commerce Street.
The Disaster Recovery Center.
That's right, in the Westfield Shopping Center.
Right off Interstate
Monday
75.
through Saturday, 8
Exactly.
to 6, until further notice.
And I encourage you folks, please go see these folks. There are human beings here that are helping you with your information. Now's the best time to get with someone, rather than if you feel a little afraid of going online or calling an 800 number and talking to a stranger. These guys are here for at least a little while longer.
Yep.
Gentlemen, we appreciate you being on the program and wish you the best of luck, and hopefully the next disaster you go to is not as bad as what you've seen. And thank you for watching Perspective here on Florida Gateway College Television and Black Crow Media. Until next time, I'm Mike McKee. So long.